This is the guidance film for the case study on Florence Nightingale, looking at the extent of change in care and treatment. So this is one of these recurring themes that we've come across during the course, from the medieval approach to care, but not cure, through to the changing role of physicians and apothecaries. We now come to the 19th century and the role of Florence Nightingale, who, uniquely, is the first woman to be named on the course so far. So she fits into the medicine in the 18th and 19th century, the period of the Industrial Revolution from 1700 to 1900. And again, working through this particular list here, you can see that again, the men are the ones that have dominated the case studies so far. But she's here, and we have to understand her role, and her significance. This lesson will focus on Florence Nightingale and the improvements made to nursing and hospitals undertaken by her. As we work through these, see if you can answer the following questions about hospitals and care. Who ran hospitals during the Middle Ages? The Church. What did medieval hospitals focus on? Care, not cure. Where would beds face? The altar or religious symbols. Who worked at the medieval hospital? Monks and nuns. Hospitals were often attached to monasteries or nunneries. True or false, if you had the plague, you get treatment at a medieval hospital? False. At best, there would be a pestilence house where you would be sent, but not a hospital. Couldn't be treated. Sent by God. Can you name a medieval hospital? St. Bart's or St. Thomas's in London are the two most famous examples. During the Renaissance, who ran hospitals? Towns or councils. They started to take over where the church no longer held that responsibility. Remember, Henry VIII got rid of the monasteries. Consequently, so did the hospitals, unless they were taken over by the town councils. What started to happen on hospital wards in the 17th century? There was some training of doctors. Hospitals started to treat the sick and their illnesses. Started. Not all of them. We will now look at Florence Nightingale and her contribution to nursing and hospitals. You need to undertake the reading that will be attached to the Google Classroom or the shared area in a separate file. Undertake the reading for me, please. Read the information sheet about Nightingale in your books and write down 10 facts about Florence Nightingale. What I would like you to do is then to complete the importance pyramid here. Fill in the importance period with the different ideas about Florence Nightingale and why she was important. Try and organise your response in the order of importance, so the most important contribution to the least important contribution at the bottom. What impact did Nightingale have? Try and complete the importance pyramid below with the different impacts. This is Scutari Hospital in the Crimea during the Crimean War, when Britain and France fought the Russians. The British and French governments went to a great deal of trouble to organise the army, but not the aftercare, not the medical services and support that went with the men when they were wounded. Statistically, you had a greater chance of death in a British hospital than you did stood in front of Russian guns that were trying to kill you. These are the hospitals afterwards. In all respects, they look like modern hospitals, and Florence Nightingale was the model for hospitals all over the world. There's the standard plan. It's known as the pavilion style. We will now look at example answers to the following question. How did hospital care and change between the beginning and the end of the 19th century? This is the question from the exam board where you will need to compare one of the themes across two different periods. Candidate 1's response. Self-assist this answer. Aim for 2 what went wells and 1 in order to improve. Please pause and read. Candidate 1. How did hospital care change between the beginning and end of the 19th century? Examine a comment. The answer lacks depth and detail. It does include some evidence about what hospitals were like at the beginning of the 19th century and how nurses were perceived. However, it does not really answer the question. Candidate 2. Same question. Please read and pause the video if required. And again, aim for 2 what went well and 1 in order to improve. Please pause the video. Examiner feedback. This is a better answer that answers the question. However, it needs development. The candidate does not go into any detail about how hospitals were different by the end of the 19th century. Candidate 3. Same question. Please pause and read. And self-assess the response. Aim for 2 what went well and 1 in order to improve. And the examiner feedback. This is the best answer. Good supporting evidence is included and the candidate clearly answers the question, explaining how hospital care improved. The candidate should be careful not to be over detailed, as this type of question is only worth 4 marks. So the candidate would not want to write any more than this. In fact, it's clear from this feedback that writing less could be better. I need to know what hospitals were like at the beginning of the 19th century with examples, and then what they were like at the end of the 19th century with examples. And then you can complete the video and the PowerPoint working your way through the following questions.